Yesterday in Boston, there was a dedication of a new heritage park on the Rose Kennedy Greenway. The sculpture and surrounding landscape commemorate the genocide of Armenians almost 100 years ago at the hands of Ottoman Turks. But the design and the setting are to reflect also on Boston's role as a haven for immigrants from many countries. To tell us about the park and the efforts behind it is our guest, the president of the Armenian Heritage Foundation, James Kalustian. Thank you very much for being with us, James.
Pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Talk about the history here, and because remembering this has been, there are still signs out there that across the board, this is not something that people have totally come to grips with in one way.
Well, historically, the genocide of the Armenian people is a historical fact acknowledged by scholars, countries around the world, and actually over 40 states in the United States. But I think, like many other atrocities, such as the Armenian genocide, some of the perpetrators have had difficulty dealing with their own past. But our motivation in building the park and gifting it to the city and the Commonwealth was to create awareness not only of the Armenian genocide, but also of other genocides and other human rights issues that have come up through the years. Lemkin coined the phrase genocide and referenced the Armenian genocide as the first one in modern history. But we also wanted to celebrate something else. So we wanted to commemorate, but at the same time we wanted to celebrate the human spirit of those who triumphed over tragedy. And many of the immigrants that came to Boston and Massachusetts escaped tragedy in their old country, whether it be the Irish in the potato famine, Jews from the Holocaust, Armenians from the genocide, Cambodians from the war in Southeast Asia. They left their homeland escaping tragedy or misfortune and came to America to celebrate what really was America, looking for hope and opportunity. And I think that's what the park is really about as well, remembering but commemorating those.
Talk about the centerpiece, the sculpture, the angles and the reflections.
It's quite a creative design. We wanted to create a park simply so that people can enjoy a park. And in a park we wanted to have features. One of the features is a dodecahedron, which is a rhomboid. It's a geometric shape. And it has no particular cultural significance, but it symbolizes for us in the context of the park these immigrant communities that were torn away. So it comes into two pieces, and then annually it will reconfigure. And there are some 24 different configurations of the sculpture, so every year when you go to the park it will look different. So it's a way for people to engage with a piece of abstract art. And its symbolism is again, the immigrant communities coming apart from the old country. And when they came to Massachusetts, they reshaped themselves in very similar ways, but never exactly like it was in the old country. So you'll never see that 12-sided rhomboid, but you'll see the dimensions of it.
We talk about the continuation of the history because the genocide we're talking about took place roughly from 1915 to 1923.
Correct.
But here in the Boston area, this was, I guess, the third largest population of Armenian immigrants or descendants?
Yes. Most of the descendants in the greater Boston area are descendants of survivors of the genocide from Western Armenia. The other large populations are in California, and in fact for many years it was the largest community. But during the Soviet era, before there was an independent Republic of Armenia, many of the refugees from communist countries came to California, obviously for the climate. But at the turn of the century, Boston and Worcester had many factories, and it was a thriving economic area, and many people came here for jobs like many other immigrant communities did. And so it's a very old community. Has many cultural institutions. There are some 13 church parishes within the state of Massachusetts. And the foundation, Armenian Heritage Foundation, is actually comprised of those 13 churches and 25 other cultural, educational, and philanthropic organizations that collectively have given this gift to the Commonwealth.
Why was it important to have a memorial park like this in the center of Boston? Because a lot of the Armenian American population is in Middlesex County, which is close to but not really in the city. So why is this location important?
Well, the Greenway, one of the central themes was the immigrant experience. And the Armenian community here were an immigrant community that came, again, many of them in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And we felt it was an important way for us to say thank you. We remember the genocide, but also our community has thrived here. And that's part of what we also want to celebrate, is how immigrants have contributed to the fabric of Massachusetts and America. And there are many survivors that came to Massachusetts that contributed in very innovative ways, whether it be the arts, the sciences, education. The Zildjian symbols, which were known around, that was a survivor he established in Massachusetts. Arshil Gorky, he's a very famous modern artist that is becoming very, very popular in the last 10 years or so. He was a survivor of the genocide, lived in Massachusetts. Yusuf Karsh is a world-renowned photographer. One of his most famous photographs was of Hemingway, of Churchill with the cigar. He came, again, as a survivor and started his career here in Massachusetts. So we wanted to be able to celebrate the contributions that these immigrants made in Massachusetts and Boston.
One other feature here in the park, the labyrinth.
Yes.
What about that?
The labyrinth, it's intended to symbolize the journey of life and the trials and tribulations that people go through, all the paths of the labyrinth. And some people think of a labyrinth as a maze. It's not. It's a pathway on the ground. In our case, it's granite stone inlaid in the green lawn. And in the center, there is a fountain, a single jet of water. And while the sculpture is intended to symbolize the immigrants coming to America and reshaping their lives, the fountain in the center of the labyrinth symbolizes the journey of life and then hope and rebirth of these communities when they came to America.
Finally, this is not just something that you look at and snap pictures of. There's more to it than this, right?
Yes. And we understand that we didn't want to be intrusive. This is park. The Greenway is all about parks and people relaxing and enjoying. And the fountains and water features in the sculpture are things that people can appreciate just on that level. But we also wanted to create an opportunity to create awareness for people about the issues, human rights issues, about the immigrant experience. And part of the next phase of our work is we will be using a lot of the social media technology that people, if they see here and they want to learn more, they can go on their smartphones and actually get educated about the immigrant groups that came to Massachusetts and the genocide.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, Chris.
James Kalustian from the Armenian Heritage Foundation.